The universal process of cellular aging progresses at different rates. Two people with the exact same chronological age exhibit entirely different levels of physiological wear and tear. Genetic predispositions only account for a portion of this variation. Environmental and social factors act as the primary drivers of individual aging trajectories. Within the traditional sociological paradigm, positive social relationships and integration buffer physiological decline. However, the biological impact of negative ties is distinct from the simple absence of support. While public health focuses heavily on social isolation, the active dark side of our personal networks remains largely overlooked. Researchers classify these negative relationships as hasslers, specific individuals in close networks who persistently create problems, trigger conflict, or make life more difficult. These familiar, normalized negative ties function as chronic, measurable biological stressors. They exert direct pressure on the body's internal systems. To quantify this toll, researchers utilized the person-to-person health interview study, extracting DNA methylation data from the saliva samples of over 2,000 participants. They tracked this data using two advanced epigenetic clocks, Grimmage-2 and Dunedin-Pace. Think of these clocks as a dashboard. Dunedin-Pace is the speedometer, measuring the current rate of aging. Grimmage-2 is the odometer, tracking our total biological age. Each network hassler accelerates the speedometer by 1.5%, adding roughly 9 months of age to the odometer. We can benchmark these effect sizes against a widely understood risk factor, smoking cigarettes. The impact of a single network hassler accounts for 13 to 17% of the total epigenetic aging caused by smoking. An individual's social network topology leaves a permanent, cumulative epigenetic signature, comparable to major environmental toxins. If negative ties are biologically toxic, we have to determine who in the population is most exposed to them. This chart summarizes Hassler predictors. Women have a higher expected count than men. Psychosocial history is a strong predictor. Higher adverse childhood experience scores mean more Hasslers. Furthermore, daily smokers and those in poorer health are embedded in significantly more negative ties. Relational inequality ensures that existing socioeconomic and early life disadvantages actively construct adult networks that compound biological deterioration. Critics might point to reverse causation. Do negative social ties cause accelerated aging, or do individuals aging faster biologically simply become more irritable? To isolate the cause, researchers linked electronic health record data to calculate a retrospective comorbidity index, adjusting for prior illnesses. The core effect size of the hassler remains statistically significant even after controlling for prior comorbidities, occupational hazards, childhood trauma, and smoking behavior. By adjusting for affective orientation, the study confirms results are driven by actual network characteristics rather than a respondent's pessimistic disposition. Researchers then used the confound sensitivity analysis to determine what it would take to mathematically overturn these findings. An unmeasured confounder would have to be stronger than nearly all observed socio-demographic covariates combined to invalidate the link to accelerated aging. The epigenetic acceleration is a direct result of social stress rather than an artifact of pre-existing sickness or perceptual bias. We must also ask whether all negative ties inflict the same biological damage. Most clinical assumptions place marital strain as the primary driver of relational aging. However, the data reveals that spousal hasslers show no significant association with epigenetic aging. Kin hasslers, parents, children, and siblings, show the strongest, most robust correlation. Network topology explains this paradox. A central ego node connects to a spouse via multiple overlapping edges, as confidants, companions, and hasslers. This multiplexity buffers stress. Conversely, the kin node connects to ego by only a single negative edge, lacking compensatory support. Kin obligations are structurally inescapable and central to the network, yet they lack the compensatory support channels found in multiplex ties. Social embeddedness is typically protective, but when attached to a unidimensional negative tie, it becomes a mechanism of chronic entrapment. How does a negative network connection translate into a modified DNA methylation site? Interpersonal stress enters the body through allostatic load, which is the cumulative physiological wear and tear resulting from the body's repeated adaptation to stress. Chronic interpersonal tension leads to the sustained activation of the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal axis. This prolonged hormonal activation triggers molecular pathways that fuel systemic, low-grade inflammation. This chart displays how negative ties impact the body. Haslers are consistently associated with increases in BMI and waist-to-hip ratio. These epigenetic clocks track the body's total systemic response to social friction. Public health currently prioritizes the epidemic of loneliness and social isolation. While isolation is dangerous, the active presence of structurally unavoidable negative ties is a distinct, equally potent driver of disease. These findings likely underestimate the true danger due to mortality selection. The most stressed individuals often die before they can participate in aging surveys. Longevity strategies must evolve beyond simply increasing social integration. Protecting the body requires the active mitigation of toxic, inescapable network topologies.